order, starting with the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next up is the approval of open session minutes from September 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we move to policies for second review.
Good morning, everyone. The first policy that you have for second review is policy 2-23, disposing of personal property. This policy was reviewed in September with this committee and then the board in October. We didn't have any in November, as you recall. There's been no stakeholder input on this one, and we would ask that this go for approval at the November meeting.
December meeting.
I'm sorry, December meeting. Goodness gracious.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions on policy 223? Hearing none, we'll move to policy 4-8.
Similarly, this one was reviewed by the committee in September and the board in October. There is one minor change, which is in blue font on page 2, which is due to a legal revision since we were here last on it. And other than that, there's been no stakeholder input, and staff would ask that this go for approval at the December meeting.
Any questions on 4-8?
No, sir.
Moving on to 4-17.
This was reviewed by this committee in September and the board in October. There's been no stakeholder input, and staff would ask that this go for approval at the December meeting as well.
Any questions, concerns on policy 4-17? Hearing none, move to policy 4-7-10.
This is the use of unmanned drones. This policy also came to this committee in September and the board in October. There's been no stakeholder feedback, and staff would ask that this go for approval at the December meeting.
Any questions, concern on 7-10? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move policy 223, policy 4-8, policy 4-17, and policy 7-10 to the full board. I believe that is December 6th at our next meeting.
Yep. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Brings us to policies for first review, starting with policy 316.
Okay, this one is leave and benefits. There is no recommended change to the actual policy itself. However, that is included in the materials. The recommended change is to the administrative guidelines, and it's due to having us comply with our current or align with our current practices as far as determining the 12-month leave period for FMLA. And then there are some state recommended revisions. The other revision I made is consistent with previous guidance from the board, where we changed the phrase school system to district. So you can see those in red on the policy, or the administrative guidance, I apologize.
Any comments on policy 316?
None.
And staff
So
would
the
ask
only one
this-
I had was on page 14 of 16, where it talks about voluntary shared leave.
Yes,
One, I didn't even know that existed, but is that both vacation, sick time? Is that what does that include? And then my
it is.
second question.
It is not annual leave or vacation time. It is sick leave. It's my understanding is that it's when an employee has to be out due to some sort of serious health condition, and so people can donate their leave to allow that person to be out.
And then my next question is authorized individuals. What is, are we talking light job grades, or can a teacher give the superintendent a sick day? I mean, what are
Yes.
we?
It can be any level. So like the superintendent could donate leave to a teacher assistant could donate leave to the superintendent. It mostly is for friends and family to donate leave to somebody that they have a close connection with. It's not kind of not typically an anonymous but we
Do we have
do.
do we have something at HR where there's a collection of people who want to give
Days away.
their leave? Like, we had that at our company and it worked out really well. If somebody has to go for treatment of something and there's a pool of, do we do that?
I don't know, but I can find out from Dr. Harris.
How often is this exercise? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know I've done it, but I don't know how often it's done.
That's all I have. Any other questions on 316?
Nope.
Hearing none, move to policy 5.1.
This policy was put on the agenda at the request of Mr. Sides at the October meeting. And if you see on, yes, page 6 of 11 at the very bottom, number 12, was the language that Mr. Sides presented at the meeting, which would allow, if a committee at an individual school determined that a book should be removed, that it would be removed from any other school in the district where the book also resided. Staff would request that if the board wishes to go in this direction, that we change it a little to allow that if a book gets removed at a certain level, that it would, or at a certain school, that it would then go to the district review committee, and the district review committee could determine if it was appropriate to be removed from the rest of the schools. For example, if a challenge came at Weddington Elementary for a book and they determined that it should be removed, that it would then come to the district review committee. They would determine if it was inappropriate for all elementary schools, and then it would be removed across the board, as opposed to a committee at Weddington Elementary determining something for all 30 schools, all 30 elementary schools.
Right.
So that would be the recommended change
Okay.
from staff.
I like that change. But at the middle school, so if Piedmont Middle School determines that it's not age appropriate and that it can go up to the review committee, but then it goes all the way down. So all the middle schools and all the elementary schools will look for that book and take it out.
Yeah, if the district committee determined it was age inappropriate for middle school because it was too high, it was like a 9 through 12 book, then it would be removed for anything below that.
Ms. Mars, I have a question. Excuse me. So the books that are in the library, I know some have been there forever, probably since I was in school. So our librarians, are they responsible for making sure that books that are in the library are age appropriate?
There is a process when purchasing books to ensure that they follow the criteria that's in this policy. When the policy was adjusted, we have had an inventory through Dr. Breedlove and Ms. Rimmer to go through and make sure that we're looking at the collections that were purchased outside of this policy, just to make sure that they are appropriate. So it's a process going back through those books.
Absolutely.
But that is, we started that in the spring, I believe. I think I'm correct, Dr. Hulan, shaking his head, yes.
Okay.
I
And
think we were
just,
having some problems with books that were being donated. Do we have donated books in our library or only in the classroom?
I think they're more in the classroom. I don't know that they are donated to the media. I mean, I think sometimes they are donated to the media collection, but they're also going through this process. Anything that's in the media collection is going through this process. We will fan it out to looking at classroom libraries and other book rooms and those things, but we're taking it one step at a time. But anything new coming in from the time this policy was revised has been following this policy.
Okay, my next question is, it states that if the committee determines that the items are in question is inappropriate, should be removed from the school. Is there a like a checklist to make a determination that something is inappropriate, or a group can just come together and say, I don't like this book and I want it removed, and they all vote yay and it's gone?
we're talking about age appropriate.
I understand that. I'm asking a question because there are some books that are, I think, age appropriate, and I understand the difference between age appropriate and what is fair for an elementary school, middle school, or high school students. But I'm just going by I'm going by the wording inappropriate, because some things can be inappropriate because a person may not like it, a person may not agree with it. So that's what I'm asking. How is the process in which we are determining what is age appropriate?
There is guidance in the policy, and I'm looking to try and find where it is. I think it is, if you look at page 3 of 11, I think that's right. Section 3 has principles that use to govern the selection.
Gotcha. Okay.
And those would be the same things. And I'm trying to make sure that I've got the right section. But there is guidance. It's
There's
not
lots
just
of things out there
arbitrary.
that you can look at. You can go to Good Sense Media and it talks about that stuff. There's a lot of websites that you can go with the book and determine whether or not what age that should be in there.
Yeah, and Common Sense Media is one of the things I think identified in the policy for committees to look at for guidance.
All right. And so I'm asking not just for myself, but I know there are people listening. And so I just want them to understand, is there a problem, Ms. Hantel?
Why would I say there's?
Oh, because you were looking disturbed by what I was saying. I'm just asking.
I'm asking my Diet Coke.
Yes, ma'am. I'm asking for clarity. I'm asking for clarity, and I'm just wanting to make sure that we're all on the same page and that our community knows that there's a group that's not just, that we're not just trying to get rid of books, that we're really concerned about every child and making sure that they do not obtain a book that they should not be reading. So that's the only reason why I'm asking these questions and letting the people know what direction we're going, because I don't want them to feel as though that we're trying to just get rid of stuff. But we do not want a child in elementary school reading something that is way out of their league. So that's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, on page 5 of 11, D5 asks the media coordinator to find reviews from things like the American Library Association, Common Sense Media, etc., for the committee to use when determining the appropriateness of a book. So it does give guidance in the policy.
So I just want the parents to make sure that they can go and read all of this information so they'll know. They can go online and look it up and look at it in detail. So that's the only questions I had.
And there was some stakeholder input that the board received emails from a member of the community on this policy, just for transparency.
I'm hearing from John is we don't have a list of words that are prohibited from books, correct?
No.
I mean, this process is somewhat subjective based on committee members.
We do not have certain things that are prohibited. Obviously, when purchasing books, the media coordinator and the school level team should be looking at things like profanity and content.
All right, anything else on 5.1? Hearing none, move to new policy on.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we're changing it. So can you send it to us before it goes to the full board so we can see what
Absolutely.
it looks like? Thank you.
I will revise this to say that basically that if the committee determines the item in question is inappropriate and should be removed from the school, it will be forwarded to the district level committee for review and determination regarding other schools or removal from other schools.
Thank you.
And I will send that out to y'all today.
Thank you.
And that moves us to a new policy on sale, disposal, and lease of real property.
Yes, as we've been going through policies, when we find gaps, we try and fill those. And as you recall, when we, in policies for second review, we looked at the disposal of personal property, and we realized that we did not have a disposal and sale of real property policy. So we took the language essentially from the School Boards Association, Ms. McLamb's department, and Mr. Moore, Dave Burnett. Those have had the opportunity to weigh in and make some proposed changes. And so we would request that this go for review at the December meeting also.
Any questions or comments on this new policy?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to send policies for first review, policy 3-16, policy 5-1, amended policy 5-1, and the new proposed policy on the sale, disposal, or release of real property to the full board in December.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I have an unreadness about policy 5 and 5-1. I just have a lot of questions about that policy on how we make that determination of what, and like you said, Mr. Price, having specific words or phrases that would address. So I'm not prepared to move that to the full body.
And Michelle, am I allowed to second?
Yes, you just can't make a motion.
Okay, with that, I'll second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, policy for first review will move to December board meeting on a vote of 2-1. Next brings us discussion. First up is school choice for 23-24 school year.
Yes, as you know, it's time for us to identify these so that we can allow families to start to apply. And the policy, it's 413, says that students may apply for a transfer to any school within the district whose population is no more than 85% as determined by the district. And then the superintendent designates which schools for on an annual basis. And so I have attached 2 documents for your review. One is the 2022 enrollments, apologize. And it's highlighted with those schools that are no more than 85% of capacity, and then a list of those schools separate. So as you can see, there's a good number of those on the list that are right at 85%, which obviously with construction and growth does create some questions, but those are the ones that are there for the committee's consideration.
Okay, I have heartburn over this. We have a lot of the elementaries at 85% of capacity, and we know that there's a lot of development and rezoning that's happening in Monroe, in Marvin, in a lot of different places. So, you know, I think that there's certain schools that we shouldn't do school choice because it's so close. And if we let a lot of kids in and we get these new developments, we're going to be overcrowded. So for example, Rayview and Sandy Ridge. I mean, they're talking, Waxhaw is talking about a huge new development that would have like 280 houses. And I don't want to, you know, and the same with Hemby Bridge. Porter Ridge Elementary's at capacity, Poplin is at capacity, and so that's the only one left. And then Monroe High School with all the new developments in the city of Monroe, Monroe High School, Parkwood, middle and high, Monroe, Parkwood, and Sun Valley, and Piedmont. I just don't think this is something we can't keep going. Wesley Chapel was a school of choice, and now it's at 132% of capacity because there's this big subdivision that was built. And I'm just worried that we're gonna So I would take off Hemby Bridge, Rayview, Sandy Ridge off of the elementaries. In middle school, I would take Monroe, Parkwood, and Sun Valley. In high school, I would take Parkwood, Monroe, and Piedmont off. There's like 5 new developments in city of Monroe. And I think Monroe is the only one that has water and sewer, right, as of right now.
Wish I knew the answer to that, but I think that's correct.
So that would be my motion.
Ms. Heintel, do you know how many developments are being built in Monroe?
I can look it up. If you give me just a second, sorry.
No, you're fine.
So in facilities, we get emails about the impacts. So whenever there's a new subdivision that's being proposed from any municipality, we do an impact statement. And now I'm trying to find it. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it. Parkwood. Hold on. They're looking. Sorry.
Well, don't worry about it. You can send it to me at a later time.
I can. Okay,
Yeah.
so here's.
Kathy, I have a question.
Okay, I can tell you right now. This is Walter Bickett, Monroe Middle High. There's 1,531 units that have been brought to our. So this is by our counting. This will bring the number of planned and not built housing units within this is 2,445, and I'm going to forward it to you, John.
Jeez.
But now those aren't all built yet, but it's coming.
Right. It's coming.
Especially for Walter Bickett anyways, and Rocky
Right.
Ridge. I mean, on both sides
Kathy, I've
of,
got a question.
I'm sorry.
Well, how would you feel about changing the policy on choice to say 80% versus the 85? That would eliminate majority of the schools you're asking to take off. I don't like the fact that we're picking and choosing what school. If our policy says 85, I think we need to stick to 85. But I think we moved it to 80. That would eliminate a lot of the schools that you're asking to have taken off.
That's a good idea.
I don't care which way we do it. In the past, we've done it where we just pull off what we think is a problem. But if you want to move it to 80%, I'm good with that.
Looks like it would take care of most of the elementary. It would not take care of the high schools.
I just think that based on, what's going on, I'm worried about it. I am not gonna lie. And with Monroe, I mean, it's a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm happy for Monroe that's getting more people and more housing and stuff like that, but I just don't want to make them overcrowded.
Right.
I'll just add for what it's worth that this is the reason why we review this annually.
Right.
And I would rather be much more cautious and conservative with the number of schools, because you don't want to wake up next August and realize that you're at 85%. Now all of a sudden you're at 110% or whatever that might be. So,
Right.
If we want to if we want to change policy, that's fine. But historically, we've just come to this committee and given you the list of 85% capacity and below and gotten your feedback and then gone from there. So it doesn't matter to us which way we go.
But Dr. Houlihan, what you're saying is you think that it would be wise to to remove some schools for next year And, okay,
Yeah, I agree. We debated this in cabinet and landed on these same schools Ms. Heintel brought up. We debated that in cabinet and we made the recommendation that to stick with the policy of 85%, bring those schools to the committee and get your feedback on it and then go from there. But we do recognize the concerns that Ms. Heintel raised.
One of the things that you have to remember too is that once I select a school of choice, I'm there through the terminal grade. So if I select Rayview or Sandy Ridge or Hemby at kindergarten, I'm there through 5th grade. So if the capacity changes as these things build, you've created potentially an issue.
gotcha.
And I will send to the full board before the December 6th meeting so that you guys can see what the impact statements look like.
That sounds
Or-
good.
Is that good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I will revise the list, removing Hemby Bridge, Rayview, and Sandy Ridge from the elementary, Monroe, Parkwood, and Sun Valley from the middle, Monroe, Parkwood, and Piedmont from the high, and submit that list if you all make the motion and approve it on the consent agenda.
I would like
I would
to,
like to ask that we keep Piedmont on the list based on stakeholder feedback I've received.
Piedmont High School.
Piedmont High School.
what do you mean by stakeholder?
They want to be a choice school.
Well, I mean, I think if you go that route, the schools that we're probably taking off want to be a choice school. But I don't know if that's going by the recommendation of Dr. Houlihan and the cabinet, I think, and what Ms. Heintel was saying, that we may have, I mean, we don't want to, I don't believe we want to take any school off as a school of choice, but due to the growth, and she's absolutely right. I don't know all of the homes that are being built, but I mean, every time I turn around, something's being built. So it is a concern.
Well, I mean, I agree. I think it's a
Okay, how
gray,
about-
you know, if
how
we
about
start
this?
picking and choosing, it's very gray.
Yeah.
I would be more in favor to move it to 80%, and that would maybe alleviate going forward some of the schools being added to the list to start with.
So Piedmont is 1% off of that. If we do 80%. Okay, how about this? How about we put this on the regular agenda, not on consent, and let me give all you guys what we have for impacts and where we are and if that helps at all. And then the full board can make a decision. Todd, would that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, what? Yes, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's do that. Is that okay?
So I'm leaving it as the list as is
Mhm.
and presenting it and putting it on as a separate
Well, I'm
agenda
gonna give
item.
you the impact, the most recent impact studies for each of these schools.
Okay, and I'll insert those into the agenda as well.
That would be great. Is that good with everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Next up is student dress code.
Yes, this came up at the October meeting as well. Staff would request that we have a year to kind of study it, get stakeholder input using principals, school improvement teams, the superintendent's various advisory committees, parent, teacher, elementary, high school, principal, and try and gather some feedback so that, and then develop something for next fall. So it's not a good time to change mid-year. So we would ask that you allow
with
us
that?
to.
Any comments on dress code? And Michelle, will we just bring that back next year? Or you going to put that on the agenda for December, or how's that going to work?
We're all, we're doing the code of conduct for the next school year as well. And there is a rule in the code of conduct about dress code. So we will fold it in when we do the code of conduct and bring them both to you together.
Okay. Brings us to policy 1-18.
Yes, this was another recommendation from Mr. Sides at the October meeting that limit how late someone can arrive to the hearing and the number of times you can reschedule. Staff would ask that you allow us to put that as part of the scheduling letter as opposed to revising policy to make statements like that. We already have language in the letter that says if you're basically a no-show, no call, no show, that you forfeit your right to an appeal. And we can also add language in there that says you're expected to arrive, no later than 5 minutes prior to your hearing, or it may be forfeited, those kinds of things. And we would ask that we be allowed to proceed in that direction as opposed to it being addressed in policy per se.
And I'm good with that as well. Any comments on that?
I'm good with that.
I'm good.
Last item brings us the display of flags in school facilities.
Yes, this was another one of Mr. Sides' requests at the meeting. The concern with this is it's really a complex issue, given the types of flags we have in schools. For example, if you walk into Cuthbertson High School, you'll see the front hall is flanked with flags from every country. And I think Mr. Sides' recommendation was US, North Carolina, and military flags. So those flags at our schools would be of an issue. DLI and foreign language teachers have cultural areas in their classroom,
okay.
And
So we
counselors
can can we have no display of schools except for flags for countries, states, armed forces, cities, towns, colleges, and their own school flag. Does that get everything?
So I guess my concern is what is the issue with the flags? Why? I mean, we are a public school. So like fraternities and sororities, that would not be included. Different groups that people may be a part of. I'm wanting to understand what is the issue or the challenge that we're bringing this up about.
You'd have to ask Gary.
Gotcha. Oh, I didn't know if he had shared with anybody or what have you.
Michelle, like before, this would go to full board and there'd be discussion at the board meeting?
Well, I felt the need, just given Mr. Sides' statement that we needed some input from this committee to draft something. I didn't even know where to begin, truthfully, and
Right.
was not finding things that helped me in the drafting, and that's why we wanted some guidance from the committee. What we can do is I can take this back and we can draft some language that addresses, kind of starting with what Ms. Heintel has shared, and then perhaps, saying something about, anything that's non-curricular, these and other, non-curricular or, or other, I guess these plus any curricular based flags would be okay. And then see what I can come back to at a future meeting. If that, I just really needed some feedback before I could draft something, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and that would come back to this committee prior to going to full board.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you good with that?
That's fine. Yes, sir.
Any other questions on flags? And I apologize that there is a E on the back page here, board doc policy section implementation.
Yes, and I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see if I'm not the most capable at these, so I apologize.
Mhm.
No, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Share screen. Here we go. Did I do it?
Yep.
Can you all see what I wanted to explain is we are now moving, the board docs platform has a policies section. And if you see right where my mouse is, this policies drop down, and it will not look any different for the end user. When they click on the board or the homepage of the school system and go and click on board policies, it will take them directly to this as opposed to where we previously had the policies on the website. So for the end user, it'll look the same, or you'll interact the same way. And so then when you open the homepage, and then you can go to all the different policies and click on them, and that's how they will look. The only significant difference is going to be in the way they look for when you review a policy. And I will show you what those look like. And I attached one in your meeting materials today, the types of leave. If you recall, the way we do policies currently for review is there's strike through and then new language is in red font. But with this new process, anything that is added will be in green and the strike through will be red. So it'll be much more easy to see when something is struck through, because it'll be red as opposed to just language in the policy struck through, and then green when we add. So go and stop, basically. And so that's how they will be when you review them. This is a good example here where we added the calculation period. It was all in green and the previous paragraph was struck through. So I wanted you to see that, since we'll be implementing that right away. And since we have this service now, and it will keep everything in the board docs platform, which is helpful for the public in their, and access and ease of use. So I wanted to share that with you all. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. There we go. I did it.
Good job.
Yay me.
All right, next up is actions taken to the full board. We're taking for second review to the December board meeting, policy 2-23, policy 4-8, policy 417, policy 7-10. Likewise, we're taking to the full board in December for first review, policy 316, amended policy 5-1, and the new policy on the sale of real property. Do we need to include the discussion items, Michelle?
No, the only other thing is that we'll be doing the choice schools as a separate agenda item.
Okay. And having said that, our next board meeting is, we will not have one in December. Our next policy meeting will be January 17th at 8 a.m. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
You too. Have a good one.